This is recording to the cloud. Shh. Up in the air. Shh. Can you feel it? You're all feeling part of this class. Part 2, week 7, which sort of gets to the fact we're almost halfway through this course. Next week, after part 1, it's an official halfway point. If we do 15 weeks, and that'd be, well, wait a minute, 7.5. Well, it would be 7.5. Okay, so we're getting close to the halfway point. You're turning your midterms. I have no clue when I'm going to grade them. I had 3 dissertations I've read the past 2 weekends. I got a 4th one to read. So I'm getting dissertation out, out. Yeah, I'll have 13 people defend this year, which is the most I've ever had. So when I'll get to those, I plan to get to them this week or next week. We have AECT coming up. I leave on the 22nd of October. I plan to have all those done before I go to AECT. So today is October 3rd. I promise in the next 19 days, I will at least look at them with the hopes of grading all them. But there's some students who have shared their work with me that went a little bit beyond the limitations. And so if everybody went a little bit beyond the limitations, that's going to require a lot more work on my part. So I might not grade as effectively or as efficiently as I would hope. So I've set up this course as a 2x2, 2 things due in the midterm, 2 things due at the final, not only to help you all understand what's expected, but to help me allocate my time for grading purposes. So my goal is to get those back quickly, but there's no guarantee. So just so you're aware. In the other class, I got them back within days so far, as Megan knows. So far, things have gotten back within days, right, Megan?
Yes, very, very efficient.
Yeah, and you have another one due this week too, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So is it a long assignment? I don't think it's that long. So is it research questions?
No, it's the methods and the sampling. So okay. It's a little longer than the first 2.
Yeah, it is a little longer than the first 2.
We'll
and I'm meeting 101 with you tomorrow, in fact. So
yes, I will see you at 11 a.m.
Yeah. So Maina, yes, you're the first one of 8 one-to-one meetings. So
yeah. I am.
And okay, we'll see if we're refreshed at that point. So Maina has been working with me really hard for 7+ years, looking at open educational resources and massive open online courses, what's called MOOCs, and studying them from many dimensions or many aspects of them. Learner engagement, satisfaction, interaction, faculty perceptions, in particular faculty perceptions of self-directed learning, and then student perceptions of self-directed learning, and what that entails in taking a MOOC or any kind of open course. We have interviewed people who have taken as well as taught MOOCs to find out what it's like to teach them and how they embed different aids, scaffolds, supports for students to help them complete the course, finish the course, and be more efficient and effective in the massive open online course. Because these are courses oftentimes with thousands, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of students who take them. And so after interviewing people for a number of years, I said to Maina last year at Christmas time, we could write 2 papers, one paper kind of mapping out the studies that we've done over the past 7 years. It was the title of that's On the Trail of the Self-Directed Learner, which is in review in a journal that the journal decided it would make a good article for the special issue that they're up and going to do, but we have not heard back from them for a few months, and I need to write to them. The second article that we wrote was something where we had presented our research at the AERA conference in Toronto 3 years ago, the American Education Research Association conference in 2019, the year before the pandemic. And what happened in this poster session is we had people streaming by, and I walked down and looked at a couple of posters of other students. Our friend Meina was doing one down the way, a few posters, and then Paul said, Paul, we're doing a poster. Why don't you come look at our poster? And Paul went and looked at, and everyone went to the last slide or second last slide before the thank you. And why did they all go to the second last slide? Because that's the one where we operationalized what we had found. We created some guidelines for other instructors if they were to design MOOCs to help learners become more self-directed. And at the time I said, Meina, everyone's looking at this one slide. There's something with this. And it took us 2 years to say, maybe we need to write that piece up, just that one slide up into an article. And so that's what we did. And this afternoon, I sent you a copy of that article because as of last week, it's been accepted into a journal, which now, Meina, has a new name. The journal is not called Open Learning anymore. It's called Open Learning : open, distance, and e-learning. So it's about open, distance, and e-learning. Maybe it always had that title, but I didn't recognize that before. So at some point they changed the title. It used to just be called Open Learning. And so you might want to make a note of it in your records, that's the title. And so what's happened, I think, is open education has kind of become the umbrella for everything else, for e-learning and somewhat blended learning and distance learning and open, everything's together into one umbrella or one bucket, if you will, sort of. And there's been a lot of headway, a lot of exciting studies in the area of open and distance learning during the past decade or two. And tonight we're going to present kind of that research article that's been accepted for publication. We're going to provide you with a sense of the 15 guidelines that are in that article. We originally had like 20 guidelines plus a bonus, but 5 of them overlapped a lot, or 4 of them overlapped. So we condensed them down. I think it's 15, right, Meina? The 15 guidelines. Okay. So I'm going to, if that's okay, Meina, I'm going to call up the slides and you can just say next slide. I'll let you explain them and I'll add to your explanations. Okay. But I'll start the first 12 slides and Meina will have the next 14 slides or so, thereabouts. So let's see if I can share my screen, if I get the right part in here. And I think this is it, right, Meina? And we are recording, right, Meina? I just want to make sure you see it.
Yes.
That we are recording. Okay. So these slides have been posted to Dropbox and you all have the link. There you got Meina's Gmail address in there. She's got one at Wayne State that's on a website if you need her Wayne State one, and so forth. As we look across the horizon in the spectrum of education as a whole, there's been a gigantic shift happening, moving us away from face-to-face experiences in classrooms like the Mosaic Project to moving to virtual classrooms and spaces where people are taking their courses maybe as a MOOC, maybe as something else. And you can see from this first data set from Class Central that the number of people taking courses online is growing. Class Central is a free repository or clearinghouse about what's happening in the world of MOOCs or online education. And they have a monthly report. And one of the monthly reports last year showed there are 220 million students learning at 950 universities, getting 70 different degrees that you could get from these universities. Almost 20,000 courses, 1,670 micro-credentials you could get. These are huge numbers. And when I was going to school, and even back when Meina and the rest of you were going to school, these didn't exist. And you can see the explosion of MOOCs that Class Central has tracked during the past decade from 2012 to 2022. If there's that much growth happening in terms of raw data, the number of students, the number of universities, and so forth, we need to better understand how to deliver such content, as well as how to support it. What can be done when you have 8 million or 20 million now learners at Coursera alone, or 7 million at EDX, or 2 million at Future Learning. These are huge numbers. And if there's a problem in the curriculum, you're going to impact a lot of people negatively. Before I go further, Maina, was there anything previously that I mentioned that you want to comment on?
No, thank you.
Okay. So I did 3 books, maybe 4 or 5 by now, I don't know, but 3 books on MOOCs and open education with my colleague Tom Reynolds in the bottom right there and Tom Reeves in the top right. Tom Reynolds and I co-dissertated a long time ago. Tom Reeves is University of Georgia. Tom's at National University, Tom Reynolds. And then in the bottom left, you see myself, and you see Ka Jiang, who works with Maina at Wayne State University. She's a full professor now. I have that book with her, MOOCs and Open Ed in the Global South, as well as my book that summarizes my R2D2 model, Empowering Online Learning. We have Mimi Lee from Houston, University of Houston. She's an IU alum as well, and was on a couple of these MOOCs books with us. And is now an associate dean. Did you know that, May? She's an associate dean for diversity at University of Houston, and a long title. So as of 3 weeks ago, I think. So she reports to the head dean. So while this is all going on, some universities are creating alternative certificate programs, alternative bachelor's degrees, alternative master's degrees. And students, because they're working full-time, like many of you, are taking advantage of the alternative education options that exist today and getting what's called a nano degree or a micro-credential or a certificate. Micro-credentials are growing around the world in that, people want to be educated, want a credential for what they've done, but don't want to commit 6 years to come to university for it. And so today we see people getting Google certificates, IT certificates, leadership, data science, and so forth, qualitative data analysis, whatever, because these things are being offered today, what's called a micro-credential. And some talk about the notion of stackability. So you can get a certificate and all those credits you took while getting a certificate count towards the master's, and all the credits from the master's count towards the doctorate. So it's stacked one on top of another. And so you start small with a small certificate or a badging, and then you build on that for more what's called lifelong learning, right? To be equipped with the skills of the 21st century, upskilled and reskilled and so forth. And I just threw in a slide I found off the web this morning. This just one way to think about micro-credentials. Learn some new content, reflect on the learning within the content, utilize that content, and show that you can understand it and can employ it in different ways, and then get a certificate or credential or some other recognition for that skill, that new skill that you have. Now, there are hundreds of millions of learners all around the world doing this kind of thing. They're learning on their own when they want to. They're learning new skills. And some of those skills are certified. There might be a degree behind it, or a credential or a badge, and others of it are not. And so education is in a state of flux, if you will, in terms of what do we certify and credential and what do we not? And how do we certify it? And how do we keep track of the things that Sune or Megan or others or Ga or others have gained through a micro-credential? How do we create a portfolio of one's learning and make and enable employers to tap into that, to understand this is what Sune knows in the area of data science or in the area of robotics or whatever it is. And so Maina and I have been looking at what are instructional designers and instructors and organizations providing to support those learners who are learning on their own all around the world. What kinds of job aids or scaffolds or supports are embedded in the MOOCs, in the open education, in the e-learning, because we want to build a society of self-directed learners. Society, in my mind, one of the most vital skills to survive in the 21st century, in the third decade of the 21st century, is to be more self-directed in your learning approach. And so to me, this is the most important thing that human beings can look at today in terms of education, not in terms of medicine or chemistry or physics, but in terms of education. To me, this is the most important thing that I can think of, because people are going to live longer lives and are going to need to be reskilled and upskilled, and can't rely on instructors that teach them everything along the way, and need some of their own momentum and volition and passion, because self-directed learning has a number of benefits. It promotes awareness or meta reflection on your skills as a learner and what you can do and what you can't do. It gives you confidence or self-efficacy as a learner. So you become self-efficacious as a learner of robotics or psychology or whatever discipline that you enter into. Self-directed learning provides or equips you with the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and abilities to succeed, and also can provide you with a sense of perseverance as well as flexibility to overcome the challenges that are bound to occur along the way. Everyone faces challenges. Everyone has tough times. Everyone is told no multiple times. And without self-directed learning skills and the awareness that you have the skills to succeed, you will give up and fall into a cycle of learned helplessness and give up on something that's potentially valuable both to you as well as society. And so while we're equipping students with the skills to do X, Y, or Z, statistics, or data science, whatever, it's not just about the individual, it's about impact on society in general as a whole. So there's a number of research questions Maina and I have not asked. We've not even approached asking. We're just doing our one-off studies and asking some real fine-tuned little questions. But as I told her, after a dozen studies, we've maybe done more than a dozen, we can now reflect on those 12, 13, 14 studies and say, what did we learn from those things? So Maina is going to be walking you through a bit of what we've learned from those studies with the 15 guidelines that were coming into play. Now, again, we've explored so many different aspects, cross-cultural diversity in MOOCs, personalization in MOOCs, engagement, professional development of the instructors, just attitudes. There's a lot more that we've done. Maina, I promise you, I pause at a certain point. Is there anything you would like to add to what I've said so far?
No, I would love to continue for the next few slides.
Yeah. And so the next slide is just the 15 different guides that we've come up with that will be in the article in Open Learning, Open Distance and E-Learning, Guidelines and Strategies for Fostering and Enhancing Self-Directed Online Learning. I will let Maina take over at this point, not mention the guidelines at all. So she has kind of a fresh say about all of them without my bias. And I'll come back and talk about them when I see I'll put my hand up or something. Maina, why don't you take over here?
Thank you, Dr. Bonk. So this paper, as Dr. Bonk has already introduced, is based on our series studies that we conducted for the past 7 years. And Dr. Bonk, could you please move to the next slide? So so this paper right now is accepted. It's accepted. I think Dr. Bonk has already shared the paper with you all. Due to the time kind of limitation, I will briefly go through these 15 guidelines. The first one is to help students set their learning goals. Right now in massive online courses, this is a screenshot from Coursera. When students enroll in the course at the beginning, they have the first pop-out window to let students to set their learning goals. This is very important. So typically, if you enroll in online massive open online courses, because it's not a traditional online course or traditional in-person course, it's important for learners to have their own learning goals in the course. Next, please.
So I will also point out that humans are goal-driven creatures. we need goals, and we need something to strive for, something to commit to, and goals provide that for them. Could be smaller goals than this, sub goals it could be, but something. Second thing I'll point out, there's a second paper in addition to the one I've sent you, as I said earlier, that's not been accepted yet. And if Sun-Mei reminds me, or if Meina reminds me, I will send that paper to you as well. It's in review. So I don't have a problem with sending something that's not been published yet. Just be aware that it's not yet published and it's just in review.
So once students finish setting their learning goals, we could encourage learners to make plans. For example, they want to finish this course in 5 weeks. This is their learning goal, and then they can make the specific schedule for the learning. For example, in the Coursera, you can choose whether you will learn on Thursdays or Tuesday or any other day. You can set the starting time and ending time, and it will automatically, you can add that to your Google Calendar through the online course.
Before I go to the next slide, I just point out, by having these plans, by having these, making those plans, that helps metacognition of the learners. That helps one meta reflect, and it sets the metacognitive monitor in process anyhow. So plans are helpful. It compartmentalizes what you're going to do. It creates sub goals then.
The third principle is to offer flexible timelines. For example, in typical massive open online courses, some, because of the learners have their other responsibilities, it's better to allow them to resume the courses that they have started, but they couldn't finish. So in Coursera, there's a function that you can reset the deadlines for the course. Online learners, especially for adult learners, really enjoy the flexibility of being able to learn at any time and location.
I'll just add to that, if the word flexibility is probably a key word of the 21st century. If you're designing your midterm projects and your final projects, in the principles of learning, one thing is critical, it's flexibility. The other thing that's come out in our research for over a decade now is freedom. So the humanists talk about freedom to learn, choice of the learning, but flexibility and choice, they go hand in hand, the freedom and choice and the flexibility. And you'll notice your midterm assignments and you have four-day grace period. That's flexibility. Meina?
The fourth principle is to highlight the estimated time frame for learning activities. This is a screenshot from the Coursera. So typically each course, they have the general length of the course, and then for the videos, how long it will last, and the readings or practices.
And so again, highlighting this becomes a metacognition thing. By having the estimates, it can set up the metacognitive monitor in your brain. You can visualize. So visualization is key in here as well, visualizing completion of those timelines. Meina? And
the fifth design principle is to embed tasks and activities to form a learning community. This is an example of the MOOC course taught by a professor in Australia, and he had an activity to let students introduce each other at the beginning of the course using this interactive map. And also he created social media page for students to socialize with each other. This is a great strategy for motivated learners, and also it's also helpful for them to have self-monitoring through the peer interaction.
And some people will consider this the most important principle. Once you have community, everything else is underneath it. Other people might say flexibility is the most important. I'll let you decide.
Another principle is to provide timely and constructive feedback. Typically, you can do this by either through automatic kind of grading, that kind of feedback. And also you can, professors can also check the online discussion, especially in MOOC courses, they provide discussion forum for students to ask a question. And some of the courses, they have several TAs to check the discussion forum so that they can address student question immediately. So
students want feedback on everything they do. I will recommend that you just continue to think about how you're giving feedback to your students. If you continue to monitor yourself and think about it, you'll have a good class. You'll more than likely have a good class if you just interested in it and make yourself aware that what are ways, peer feedback, expert feedback, system feedback, self-feedback, instructor feedback. How can you provide feedback? A quiz is one way, but there are other ways as well.
Yeah, as I mentioned, like the another strategy is to have like quizzes for students to do self-assessment, especially for self-directed learners. They can immediately get results of their learning, whether they master the content or not. So this is an example from a Coursera course as well. The eighth principle is to create some visuals, show their work in progress and the task completed. So this progress bar shows how much the students have completed through this course. Using this technique can help students with their self-monitoring process in self-directed learning. Another principle is to provide reflection questions. So the instructor can provide reflex questions by post some questions in the video, or they can use discussion forum. And also some of the faculty members can also use the reflection papers at the end of the course to promote students to reflect their learning.
And you're actively engaging them with those reflection points instead of just letting them move on to the next. It's a way of interacting without a human being asking. You've got these. You're interacting through the question, right? And large companies have utilized this reflection question approach in their training programs that are addressing tens of thousands of employees. When my handbook of blended learning came out with Charles Graham in 2006, I think Sun Microsystems doing Java training, and I'm trying to think of the other, Oracle, and maybe IBM, and many other big companies were doing that. So all they were, I asked, how are you getting the self-paced learning activities? How are you getting them to engage? And they said reflection questions is one key thing that they put in. The military did this in their Army research that I was on, Army research project, looking at some captain career course that they had built over a series of number of years. So this may sound simple. It may sound not all that important of the 15, but and maybe it's the least humanness in the loop. There's no human being. It's just the computers providing the questions typically. Now they can do interaction between and among human beings with each other. So it is one thing that we have to keep in mind, we have to foster. And Maina, my book from this year that just came out, we have reflection questions at the end of every chapter. Every author posed some reflection questions for the reader, because we want that book to be used in multicultural education courses, and we want the pre-service teachers to reflect on the chapter and what they're learning, not just read the chapter, but reflect on the importance and the takeaways and how to utilize. So huge power in the questions. Paul Kim, who soon may work for and has created the SMILE program, is about asking different levels of questions or evaluating levels of questions and getting people to interact around question asking and around question rating and all sorts of things. So it's a lot of power here. I'll go to number 10, Maina.
So the number 10 principle is to design time-sensitive learning units, which means that for some learners, they may have some other responsibility they may want to learn during the short learning units. So this screenshot shows that in the massive open online courses, they typically have very short videos, like 6 minutes. Typically, based on our research, like less than 10 minutes will be more engaging. Next, please. The next one is to make available optional learning materials and self-direction selection options. So this example, like in one course, they provide a basic level and advanced level of reading. So learners, based on their interests, they can select different levels. As you know, also in Dr. Bonk's class, he always have a lot of options for you to choose readings and assignments. Yeah, so this is a principle like Dr. Bonk uses very often as well.
It's also used in Laurie Santos's biggest MOOC in the world from Yale, on health, on well-being and happiness. She has optional assignments. If you don't want to do them, you don't have to do them. If you can do them, you can, So having these alternative optional materials can intrigue people who want to push ahead, want to learn more. And those who have less time don't have to go through them. Number 12, Maina.
Number 12 is related to creating a structured learning environment, including weekly overviews. For example, this is a course that talk about statistic modeling, that they have the overview at the beginning of the week. The structured learning environment also include, like at the beginning, you have very clear learning objectives of the learning unit, and also well organized so that it's easier for learners to navigate in the online courses. Yeah, that's this principle. Next, please.
We all need some structures, right? Everyone needs some structures. Some need more, some need less. And then what these 15 guidelines are doing is providing levels of structuring and layers of structuring for some of the learners that might need more support and handholding, but yet not be overbearing, so that those that want to move ahead can move ahead and are not gated or limited. Some in the old days, online learning had these gates. And if you didn't get to 95% mastery, you weren't allowed to the next level, And some people got awfully disappointed or frustrated more so in those early systems for online learning, because it was just about clicking and mastering a certain level before you can move on. It wasn't about interacting and engaging learners.
Another principle is to make sure that the lectures are recorded, and also it's better to be added with captions or subtitles. As you know, online learners may have different language background, and then if having subtitles is very helpful for foreigners. For example, this course, this is talking about data science related stuff. This course, they have the subtitles in the video. Next,
as we're doing in here, recording it just right now. We are recording this right now for everyone. Maina?
And another principle is to include the application exercise for putting the course materials into practice. So this means that for online courses, you not only let students to learn the basic knowledge, and also you want them to apply the knowledge into the practice. So that they can integrate what they learn into more higher level learning objectives. So the last one is also using gamification to support self-directed learning. This is also from one of the study that we, Dr. Bonk, and we collaborate with Dr. Ann and Dr. Lin from University of North Texas. So using gamification can engage learners in online learning, and it helps to support their self-directed online learning. So that's a brief introduction about 15 principles for fostering student self-directed learning. If you want to know more about detail of this paper, you can read that paper once it's published. Thank you.
You can read the preprint I just sent everyone. And hopefully I'll send you the second article and you can put the two side by side. Now, if you want to read any of our researches, and there are a dozen studies that either published or in review related to self-directed learning, we'd be happy to share those with you. Anyone who would ask for those. If you take my 678 class, R678, a year from spring, if you're still around, I'll cover much more of the research on Open Ed and MOOCs in that class and summarize the research. Maina and I have one presentation we do where we summarize maybe 7 different studies or 5 different studies that we've conducted. And one is her dissertation, one is her qualifying exam, basically, or dossier 2 research question, and there's spin-off projects. So this has been a fruitful area. We've been lucky in that Maina and other students of mine and friends have helped us create a database of over 3,000 MOOC instructors, of which to do studies with mine, different research studies on different topics. And so rather quickly we could ramp them up, and it didn't cost us a lot of money. We didn't need major grants to study the instructors or students taking these massive open online classes. It would have been nice if we had money. Maina would have loved getting paid all summer instead of working for free, and so forth. But yeah, we've been able to do a lot on a very small dollar amount. So you don't have to be always hesitant to approach a research topic just because you haven't gotten a grant. You can still find areas or aspects of it to explore that are important questions, just like this, as I framed it at the beginning. This to me is the most important question out there today that we have. Many people would say AI in education is the most important area of education, but that's not necessarily a question. That's a big general area. So Sunmei, you have any comments before we end here tonight?
That's really interesting. That's because I really want to learn the SDL skill, and then they are really well organized. So everything, actually I just nodded. That's because that makes sense. And then also actually that one is based on Coursera online learning platform. I never, took that, online courses. I really want to take it later. Yeah, that's because that looks great. That's because a lot of, educational theories are applied to that platform. That's because, that was really great in, multiple option for, additional materials as well. And then instant feedback and also weekly, overview. It's a really great idea to guide the students and then, attract more students. And then that was really great. Actually, I recommend that courses for my son as well. I think that's really great. And then, wow,
Nice.
The tons of data, I think that, right? That there are online courses, so amazing. I'm just, oh my God, that's great. And, that would be great for, many students, I think. That's because I really love, online learning. That's because I'm an online student, right? That's because that was really great opportunity. So, and then I thought, last language is Python, I think. And then maybe I will take that course as well. So that's really great. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, just to share, the link, So Dr. Bonk, you already sent that paper to us.
The first paper, not the second one. And I've not posted the slides from part one. I've posted slides, the ones I just showed on part one. I posted Merve's and I posted this set, but I still got a couple things to do after class. You can remind me of it.
Okay.
So thank you. Megan, any comments on this?
No, I'm just taking it all in.
Ga, you have any comments for us?
No, I don't have any questions, but I think one of the comments is I might have to steal some of the principles for the midterm project.
So, Sunmei, should we let him steal?
What?
Should we let him steal all this stuff from tonight for his midterm? So I want to thank Maina for coming into both parts of tonight's class and be part of R622. Maina, I promise to share these if you want the links for your students over at Wayne State. I can, I'll try and get those.
Please feel free to share the link with me. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that. So we've gotten done almost exactly on time tonight, unlike other nights. And so, as I said, this would be it's a little over a half hour, but not that much more. We've gone through it. You can see that there's some wisdom. If you do a dozen studies in an area, eventually you'll get wisdom. and hopefully that is something people will read that article of ours and maybe the other one and be motivated to reach out to us or become collaborators with us, or do a symposium together or something like that in the future. So again, tonight was a key week because I think active learning spaces, I think self-directed learning should be key parts of any design of any learning environment. And that's what this course is about. especially learning environments in the 21st century, should entail some aspect, at least, of self-directedness. Maybe not all, but maybe 25%, maybe 30%, maybe 40%, maybe 50% should be self-directed learning in some way, shape, or form. So I want to encourage all of you to read as many articles this week on active learning spaces and reach out to Maina and I to get our research on SDL, and then heading to next week on youth participatory action research. I promise that I will be getting into the discussion groups tonight. I haven't been in there for a little bit for a couple of weeks, so I'll be giving some feedback in there tonight. I'm going to end the recording. Again, thanks to Maina tonight. Thank you, Maina.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.